Do you feel like you've been doing everything to get your manifestation and yet you still don't have the success you're looking for? Maybe you don't even have signs or movement to get excited about and you're wondering what you could do to ensure that you will get your manifestation. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going in depth with a demonstration and explanation on what you can do to get your manifestation and what you could potentially be doing wrong. But before we get into that, to those of you who are new here, howdy, my name is Matthew and I am a manifestation coach. I have helped many people create some amazing things in their lives. So ask yourself, do you want some amazing things in your life too? If the answer is yes, down below in the comment section and the description is the link to my Linktree where you can find my website where I offer coaching solutions. Down in that same Linktree, I also have a link to my membership, which is only as little as £6 per month. And on that membership, you can get tons of free videos, free worksheets, free routines, planners, discounts, and tons more things, including the full Manifest Your X-Back guide, which is an hour and 40-minute long video packed with the information you will need to get your specific person. If you're interested in either of those, check down below after this video and go see what you can find. If you could drop me a like and a comment on this video just to let me know you like this kind of content, and when you subscribe to the channel, be sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss any future life-changing videos. I look forward to seeing all your lovely comments. Now into this video. As I often do, I want to start this video with a bit of a disclaimer. If what I speak about in this video does not apply to you whatsoever, do not feel discouraged. That actually means that you are on the right path. If what I speak about here isn't your situation, that means that there's nothing that you're doing wrong, and in fact, all you need to do is relax and stay excited knowing that your manifestation is right around the corner. So don't go searching the next biggest YouTuber trying to find an answer, because all that's doing is keeping you in the wrong state. So hold that in mind, and if none of this applies to you, great job, you're on the right path. To everyone else, let's get into this video. So I want to start with what is quite a common reason why people may not necessarily be getting their manifestation. And I'm going to write it on the board, but the board might fall over. So if it does, there'll be a cut and you can laugh at me. So the first step is doing it wrong. Oh, that's an M. Doing it wrong. Now, I know that many of you would have seen videos from other YouTubers saying you can never do it wrong, you can never this, you can never that. You can manifest wrong. You can do the wrong things. From a perspective of I've done it wrong, therefore my manifestation is over, that's not true. You can't ever screw up your manifestation so bad that there's no turning back. But you can definitely do the wrong things to ensure that it is delayed or to make it take longer. Now, why is that? Well, your reality, the basis of manifestation, is built up by your dominant thoughts and your assumptions. Your conscious mind, whatever it dominantly thinks, or whatever assumptions are held true by your subconscious mind, that is what your subconscious mind takes in to push this experience out for you to experience. So the reason why that's the case is because your subconscious mind works in the present moment. Now, if you're dominantly thinking about things that aren't aligning with what you want, or if you assume it to be true that you don't have what it is that you want, your subconscious mind is going to take that in, and it's going to continue to take that in and push it out for you to experience, further delaying your manifestation. But as I mentioned in my last whiteboard video a couple of weeks ago, Circumstances Don't Matter one, which I recommend you check out after this one, because everything is based on your present moment awareness, you can never screw it up so bad that it doesn't ever have the opportunity to come back. Because the second you change your awareness, the second you're feeding a new story to your subconscious mind, the second it can start creating off of that story. So because of that, for as long as you're doing the wrong thing, you're delaying it further. But you can never delay it to a degree that it will never ever come. But what do I mean by dominant thoughts? Because I realize that I've had a few questions of people saying, how does the dominancy work? So it's dominant thoughts based on the desire, not your overall day-to-day. Let me explain further. If you're awake for 20 hours of the day and someone says you need to be in the end state dominantly, that doesn't mean that you need to be in the end state for 10 or more of those hours. It's not dominancy regarding your waking hours. In fact, it means if you're thinking of your desire for, let's say, 4 hours, you need to be in the end state for 2 or more. Obviously, it's very simplified using time as the quantity here, but it's not how long you've been awake and you have to be in that state for dominant in that regard. It's if you're thinking of your desire, dominancy regarding that. Let's say you have 20 thoughts, 10 or more need to be in the end state. Let's say you spend 2 hours thinking about it a day, 1 hour or more needs to be, did I say 10 or 2? Let's say you've been thinking about it for 10 hours a day, 5 or more needs to be of the end state. That's what dominancy means. So hopefully that clears up some of those questions for people thinking that they're awake for 16 hours and they're panicking that they're not thinking of their result for 8 or more of them. So don't worry about that. It's just regarding what you actually desire to be true and how much you're thinking of that. So the first thing that I want you to do is just be honest with yourself. And I'm not going to be mad at you, and no one else is going to be mad at you if you're honest with yourself and say, yeah, I'm not in that dominant state. But just ask yourself, are you consistently more dominantly in the end state than you are in the undesired state or something that doesn't really align with your end result? If the answer is yes, great job. Keep it up. If the answer is yes, you're one of the people that I mentioned at the beginning of this video that are doing everything right. If you can honestly, and try to keep in mind that we actually often over-exaggerate how well we do and under-exaggerate how bad we do. If you can honestly say that you are in the end state more than the undesired state, you're doing the right thing. And therefore, it's just a matter of time before your manifestation comes into fruition. Because, like I said in that circumstances don't matter video, it's all based on your awareness. Now, if you're dominantly in the end state, nothing can stop you. However, if the answer is no, then clearly it's time for change. We need to be working on building up a better mental diet. Now, the reason why I say mental diet and not necessarily increasing the work that you're doing or things like that is because you absolutely can increase the work that you will be doing. Let's say, for example, let's use quantity of thoughts. Let's say, for example, you had 20 thoughts about your desire, and currently you're only thinking 5 from the end state and the other 15 from the negative side, more dominantly in the bad thing, obviously experiencing more bad. Now, you could increase it so that you manage to keep the negative thoughts that you're doing the same, so at 15, but you've now got it to 20 positive thoughts, and therefore making a number of 35 total thoughts about your desire a day, but you're now more dominantly in the positive, which still will work because you're now more dominantly thinking positive. You could definitely go that route. The only problem with that is that's where people will often find they burn out, and they're relying more on spending more time on something as opposed to solving the issue at hand, which is my low positive thoughts and my high negative thoughts. So what I recommend starting with, and you can absolutely go the affirmations route or the visualization route or the increased route if you want, but what I do recommend, because I think it's generally better for us, is to work on building a better mental diet. Now, mental diet is sort of a bit of a buzzword that I see thrown around quite a lot. It's not something that you turn on and off. It's not a technique. It's sort of similar to self-concept in the sense of it helps you manifest, but it's not something that you rely on as a technique, if that makes sense. The reason being, mental diet essentially just means being aware of your thoughts. Similar to a real diet, as I did in a short a little while ago, a mental diet is not unlike a real diet. If you want to build a better body, whether that's lose weight or whether that's build muscle, you will have a certain kind of diet, obviously along with exercise or working out, to help you accomplish that goal. If on your diet it is to decrease the amount of calories that you have, when you see a donut or something with high calorie foods, you don't just go and cram it in your face because you want to. You consider, does this benefit my diet? Or does this benefit my goal, sorry? That's a diet. Mental diet is essentially the same thing, but with thoughts instead of caloric food. You consider, I'm having a thought that will take me out of my end state and put me in the state of some bullshit that I don't want to experience. Am I going to cram that into my face? Of course not, because that won't reach your goal. Whereas what would you do instead? You'd think better thoughts. You'd think thoughts more in alignment. Now, mental diet is simply just being aware of what you're about to cram into your face, basically, but with thoughts instead. So by becoming aware of what you're thinking at any given moment, that's half the battle, because once it's known, then you can start working past it. So let's just use an example of mental diet. You have a thought. Is it a good thought? As in, does it align with your end result? If it is good, reside in it. Boom, there you go, you're manifesting, because your thoughts are constantly being taken in and taken in for consideration, which is why it's your dominant state. So if it's a good thought, reside in it, enjoy it, do whatever you want with it, but try to stay in it for as much as possible. Is it a bad thought? Okay, catch it and flip. And what do I mean by that? I'm aware that I'm thinking about how I'll never get my person again. Is that going to benefit me? No, because that's feeding my subconscious mind the story that I will never get my person again. Okay, if I had my person right now, what would I be thinking? I'm so happy to have my person right now. Start thinking those thoughts. If you struggle to just think them, that's when you can do the affirmations or the visualizations or the scripts. But whatever will help you move your focus toward having your person, in this example, obviously this works for anything that you're manifesting, that will be then taking you, let's say for example it worked. Did it work? Yes, cool, reside in it. Boom, you're manifesting. That's all you have to do at the simplest level, so to speak. Oh, I'm thinking something that aligns with a version I don't want to experience. Let me take that in. What would I want to be thinking instead? Or how would I want to be feeling instead? Or what actions would I be taking instead? Now, the reason why I've added thoughts, feelings, and actions there, just breaking away from this for a little bit, everything is based on our thoughts. Now, the reason being, the way that you perceive something will affect the way that you feel about something. You won't feel anything without a perceived story first. And the way that you act is just a physical reaction to a perceived story. So thoughts are kind of at the top of the hierarchy, and the thoughts will affect your feelings and your actions. But if you're feeling or thinking or acting like doing something stupid or that doesn't align with your end result, catch it. What would I be thinking instead? What would I be feeling instead? What would I be doing instead? If you're able to then understand that and start thinking, feeling, or acting in the way that you should be thinking, feeling, or acting, then great, reside in it. Did it work? Yes, good, you're on the right path. Hopefully you can see the writing quite well from the video. Good, reside in it. There you go, you're manifesting, you're creating more dominancy in the end result, you're doing the right thing now. If it didn't work, there's one more thing that you can do first, and that is try an anchoring technique. This is something that I've mentioned in a few videos now, and my most recommended one is breath work. Now, what is an anchoring technique before I even get into that? It's essentially taking your focus away from something to better benefit yourself. So while the catch and flip method is perfectly valid and will work for most people, sometimes it's very difficult for people, especially if they're really deep in their spiral, to go, oh, I'm no longer thinking about that, I'm just thinking about something positive. And sometimes this can make people feel a little bit worse within themselves as well. So if this is your situation, I recommend doing an anchoring technique, which, like I mentioned, is breath work. What this will do is it will remove your awareness entirely from the situation, because it may not be so easy to go bad thought straight onto good thought when it comes to the situation, but you might be able to have better success with it if you can pull your attention away from that entire area and put it onto something else. For example, I've had people say to me that they really struggle to deal with the negative thoughts when their specific person comes to mind. So they just imagine how nice it would be to have more money or to have a new house or something like that. And by putting their focus on something completely different, it helps them. So an anchoring technique will help you accomplish that. And like I said, I recommend breath work. Simply by stopping, taking a few deep breaths in, and then slowly letting them out, and really focusing on each breath as it comes, that will help you remove your awareness from whatever is going on, the negative thoughts, the negative 3D circumstances, whatever is going on, because you're now placing your awareness on something else. You're now placing your awareness on every passing breath as and when it comes. Therefore, removing your attention from other things. It's a lot harder to focus on the sadness of the past, the depression of the present, or the fear of the future when you're thinking of each breath as it comes. What this will also do, as well as taking you away from it, is it'll help relax you. And when you're in a more relaxed state, you will find it a lot easier to then place your awareness on something more positive, because your conscious mind is fighting you a whole lot less. Using the example of what I did in not yesterday's video, but the last video I did, when that strong wind is blowing against you, the breath work is like taking a little break, waiting for the wind to die down, and then going back at it. If you haven't watched that video, once you watch this one, I recommend you check it out. That will be enough for sort of a big chunk of the rest of the people who are struggling to deal with those thoughts to help move past it. So, did that work? If yes, great. hang on, did it work? Yes, great, reside in it. Boom, you're manifesting correctly, you're helping increase that dominancy of those thoughts, therefore doing it right. That says doing it wrong, but you know what I meant, doing it right. Did it work? No. Now this is obviously the next step. And I put here, see next part, which is this here. Apologies if you can see the ring in the middle. I really don't know how to light it up well without having that ring, so hopefully it's not too much of a problem. But this here, what I've just spoken about here, this is the fundamentals of manifestation. Think as though you have it, reside in it, boom, you get it, sort of thing. In this, I've explained how it works. I've explained how dominancy works. I've explained dominancy overall. I've given you like a way, like a little mind map. If you need to screenshot it and, you know, keep it on your phone or something. I've given you a little mind map and ways to go about it, which should work for most people. Now, if it really doesn't work, if becoming aware, flipping it, breath work, flipping it, none of that works, there's something going on deeper under the hood that you need to gain control over. Now, the reason why I put this first, and I will mention it in a little bit more detail here, is because this is enough to manifest regardless of whether you do the next steps. But the next steps will help you further. So, the next steps. What's the next potential reason why... Oh, it's going to fall over. Core, belief, please don't fall. It's propped up by some candles. But the next step is core beliefs, essentially. Now, like I said a second ago, you don't need to... Well, not like I said, but using what I said a second ago, you don't need to change your core beliefs in order to manifest. It definitely helps, but you can manifest something without affecting your core beliefs. Because like I said up here, it's your dominant thoughts and assumptions. If you're able to just overcome those core beliefs, or using this stuff down here, be more dominant with your flipping your thoughts in the positive story than the negative, that's enough to manifest, and you won't have to ever touch a core belief to do it. But like I said, there might be a deeper thing going on down here, which is why people struggle to just flip the thoughts. And it's because of their core beliefs. So what are core beliefs? These are essentially stories picked up based on experiences. Now, often you will find that this comes from childhood. It could be that you were always fighting for your father's attention, or your mum always used to tell you that if she didn't have you, she could have had an amazing career, or she got into drugs or something, just whatever. Some negative story, basically, that makes you feel less than. You can look at yourself and think, oh, I don't feel good enough, or I'm always doing extra to get people's attention, or I never have healthy relationships. And often you can track this all the way back to some story growing up, or at least early on in your life, that made you feel a certain way and think a certain way about yourself, which will then keep replaying itself in the form of unhealthy relationships, people leaving you, always being the second option, yada, yada, yada. So essentially, core beliefs are nothing more than stories that you picked up along the way that you believe about yourself. You may be the most attractive, handsome, intelligent, amazing person in the world, but if you have a core belief that you're not any of that because of some childhood thing, you will experience basically none of that. You'll experience none of the good things that come with being extremely attractive, wealthy, intelligent, and so on and so forth. Because your subconscious mind goes off of your truth, not the truth. Because it only has whatever you're thinking and whatever it has stored to go off of. Your subconscious mind has no concept of the past, the present, and the future. It only operates in what you are thinking now, or whatever it has stored is happening now. So, what does that mean then for you? Why does that mean that core beliefs could be a thing that's getting in your way? Well, let's say, for example, that you did have that story of, I always had to work for my father's attention because he really wanted a boy and I was a girl and I was just not good enough, just as an example. That will store within you this feeling, because of that constant story playing out in front of you, that will store internally in your subconscious mind the idea of, I need to do more in order to get any kind of attention and validation. Now, if that is something that it has stored, because your subconscious mind only works in the present moment, even though this is a past experience, it's replaying it as though it's happening now. So you may have a situation where you really like some guy, for example, and he has not necessarily the same vibe as your dad, but you want his approval in the same way that you used to want the approval of your father. So therefore, your subconscious mind essentially flips through its library of beliefs and goes, oh, this is a very similar dynamic to then, I'm going to push out the same experiences. And that's why you will basically reenact the same way. You'll do more to try and get their attention. You'll never feel good enough. Now that obviously is a personification of how the subconscious mind works, but you get the rough idea. Think of it like it is literally a library full of all the different things you believe about yourself. And when you're in a scenario where one of those beliefs could be picked out, it picks it out and goes, I'm going to act like this because of this core belief. Now you may be 20, 30, 40 years older than you were when you were fighting for your father's approval, but the belief still acts the same because your subconscious mind assumes that everything is happening right here, right now. You may have been a child when you didn't feel good enough, but because that story is stored, it still plays out in every day of your life or any time this kind of scenario happens. So that, being that there is no concept of past, present and future, as well as you don't need to change your core beliefs, explains why the dominant thoughts and assumptions create. If you just reside in the end, apologies for the dogs, if you just reside in the end result, you can still get your manifestation even without working on core beliefs. But this is often why people struggle to just move past those negative thoughts because of the stories they have internalized. This is why people struggle to just be good enough, or just be the person who has the money, or just be in a relationship, because they may have core beliefs that have been brought up along their way that essentially stop them from just being something because they've just always been something else so significantly that it's had a severe impact on their life. Struggle to just be good enough when the core belief is that of not being good enough. And this ties in with part one. So this obviously ties in with all of this down here. Very difficult for you to gain control of your thoughts, your feelings and your actions when you've always been a certain way. Yes, you may have some success some days. You may be having a particularly good day. You might have listened to Evacuate the Dance Floor by Cascada and feeling really good about yourself. That's my guilty pleasure song. And because of that, you're able to flip those thoughts. But on a normal day when you're just being your normal you struggle to flip the thoughts because you've never been good enough, or because you've never been the attractive one or the chosen one, so on and so forth. So, what does that mean for your manifestation then? Why does that tie into why you may not necessarily have your manifestation? Well, manifestation, conscious manifestation, is the idea of being conscious with where you're placing your focus to make what you want happen. Your subconscious mind is always listening. When you're not being conscious, the internal stories that you have stored will continue to play out because they affect the way that you think, feel and act without you consciously affecting how you think, feel and act. If you've always been not good enough due to a core belief, if you're not being aware of what you're thinking, feeling and acting like in any given situation, your body and mind will go based off of what it already has stored. Now, if someone already has the idea that they're not good enough stored, they're going to start thinking, oh shit, this person really doesn't want me. They're still going to start feeling anxious when someone takes a little bit longer to respond. They're going to start checking the social media when they feel like they need this person's validation. Until they become aware and conscious, they're going to be acting unaware and unconsciously. And this is where the core beliefs come into how manifestation works. Because on those moments when you're not affirming and you're just busy at work, but you've got that little thing running in the back of your mind, what stories are going on then? Have any of you actually sat and tried to keep an eye on them? If not, that's where this mental diet comes in, and I recommend you check it out. So when not being conscious, the stories play out due to unconscious thoughts, feelings and actions and reactions. So you'll think, feel, act and react based on those unconscious stories for as long as you're staying unconscious or not manifesting consciously. When shifting thoughts, there may be some kickback. Now this is obviously where this comes back into play, that kickback. Now what do I mean by kickback? Well, did I write it here? Let me just have a little good idea. No, I didn't write it there. I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself. So what do I mean by kickback? Well, again, I mentioned this in the video that I just posted, so I highly recommend you go check that one out. But your subconscious mind has had a story for so long, since your childhood basically. So if you felt not good enough for so long, and then all of a sudden you just go, I'm good enough. Kim Velez put out a self-concept tape, I'm good enough now. Sammy Ingram told me to just affirm that I'm good enough now. Matthew stands there with some air of confidence that makes me feel a little bit good enough, I'm good enough now. your subconscious mind may throw a little bit of kickback at you because it doesn't have that story stored, essentially. You're basically trying to attack its programming. Think of when you try to save a file with the same name on a computer. All of a sudden it goes, this is already here. Do you want to overwrite this or not? That is very similar to what your subconscious mind does. It essentially will kick back at you because it goes against what you already have stored. Now the reason it does that is because what's stored is there to keep you safe. If it's something that is known, it's predictable and therefore safer than something unknown, which is unpredictable and therefore more likely to be unsafe. May not necessarily actually be unsafe, but as a species built for survival, we're all based on safeties and stuff. So that's why there may be that bit of kickback, because of the story that you have internalized. If you experience this kickback, all you need to do is keep going. Because what's going to happen by doing that is you're going to continue to show your subconscious mind these new thoughts. You can either go through it this way here with the flipping the thought, did it work? Great. If it didn't, anchoring technique, did it work? Great. If it didn't, and then I'm moving on to this step, or what I'm about to talk about down here. Either way, what matters the most is you continue to push forward. It's absolutely fine to have little mini breaks. Let's say you really feel like shit, you really feel like you're lying to yourself, take a mini break, go back to it later. But what matters most is that you don't give up, or you don't allow the internal story to stay true. Because if you currently don't feel good enough and you're trying to shift it to become good enough, and then this kickback comes up, and this kickback is often in the form of feeling like you're lying to yourself, your mind going, well, how's that ever going to happen, or you don't deserve it, or something like that. If you give up based on those thoughts, all you have said to your subconscious mind is, yes, those things are true. When that computer file says, are you sure you want to overwrite this? If you give up, that is the same as saying no, therefore keeping the old file. If you click yes, in this case pushing through, you'll overwrite that file and eventually at some point in time create a new story which when you are being unconscious will play out on its own. People that have begun to view themselves so highly and become borderline arrogant, they seem to get everything despite how much of a dick they may be. And I guarantee you they're probably not sitting there doing constant affirmations. It's because of their unconscious story now goes, well, I deserve it all, so why wouldn't it all come to me? And their subconscious mind gets to work pushing it out for them. So, if you've done this, and you've gone, bad thought, catch it, flip it, did it work? No. Did you try breath work? Did it work? No. And still no luck? Work on these core beliefs. So how do we actually do that then? Well, the first thing I recommend is actually finding out what your core belief even is in the first place. A core belief can be identified by simply asking yourself, why not me? Now, the question itself may be simple, but you may have to work through it for quite some time. You may have to really sit there with some relaxing music, pen and paper, and just smash out whatever comes up. So whatever scenario is in front of you right now, ask yourself, why not me? Why couldn't I have it? If this other person has the most loving relationship and their partner always reaches out first, why couldn't I have that? If there are other people earning millions by doing basically nothing, why couldn't I have that? And write down every potential reason that may be that you cannot have the desire that you desire to have. Once you've done that, obviously I've got it here, list out answers, create opposing stories. These are just things that your subconscious mind may have picked up along the way. For example, if you have the belief of money doesn't grow on trees because your parents used to say that and they were broke, you may now really struggle to just identify with the idea that you could have hundreds of thousands of pounds coming each year through passive income. Once you write out that, you will now make it known what your core belief is, making it much easier for you to tell an opposing story. But you actually need to list it out to make that known. So I recommend creating those opposing stories. And that could just be a case of money does grow on trees, or I'm deserving of having loads of money. Keep it simple for now if you need to, but at least by getting those opposing stories, you're going to be beginning to break down the negatives of that scenario. And I actually have a bit of a demonstration more on how I like to do it. So let's say the belief is, I'm not good enough. That could be turned into, I have always been good enough. Now, why have I said I have always been good enough? Well, if we link it all the way back up to here, hopefully it doesn't fall down when I do this. Start to wobble. But if we link it back up to there, your subconscious mind has no concept of past, present, and future, like I said earlier. So If you say, I've always been good enough, how's your subconscious mind going to sit there and go, oh, but you remember in November 3rd, 1943? I don't know if that was a bad day. Don't ever Google that just in case it's a bad day. But do you remember that day when our parents did this to us and it made us feel all of this kind of way? How can you be good enough when that experience happened? Your subconscious mind doesn't do that. Your subconscious mind, upon repetition of this story, will assume that you have always been good enough because that's a story it will claim to be true. Because it only works in the past, present, and future, and because it doesn't know what is and isn't real, it only goes off of your stories. If you claim, I have always been good enough, you will begin to feel good enough within yourself and essentially change the reference point that your subconscious mind has to go off when unconsciously creating your life. So that's why I've recommended it, and I've even put down here, no concept of past, present, and future, so revise. And I've done 4 little lines underneath it, which makes you know that I'm serious about it. I have always been good enough is revision, because you are changing a reference point from the past. Revision is nothing more than taking something that you didn't like and shifting how it went. I've always felt not good enough, so I'm taking that and saying I've always felt good enough. And that is revising the past. You don't necessarily have to bring each individual event up for it to work, but that is a way of revising the past. And I recommend you do so, considering your core beliefs generally are created from childhood, ergo the past. Your subconscious mind doesn't realize that it's the past and that you've grown up since then, so fucking revise it. Take what you have on that list and write out revising stories to shift what you have internalized. And upon doing this, upon revising those stories, the core belief will begin to shift. Therefore, the foundation, linking it back to the beginning, of why you weren't able to just flip those thoughts will no longer be as strong. That negative story will not be as impactful, therefore making it easier for you to flip those thoughts. Let me give you a demonstration. I have a thought that I'm not good enough. Not good enough for my person specifically. Tried to flip it, now I feel like I'm lying to myself because I'm not attractive enough and I'm not cute enough and not whatever enough. Tried some breath work, still didn't work, I still feel like shit within myself. Work on my core belief. Let's say I spent a week working on my core belief. I realised where it came from. I realised that it came from the idea of my father making me feel like I had to work for his attention. I revised that story and started saying I've always been more than good enough for the attention of the people I desire, or for the love of the people that I adore, or some variation of that. Upon doing this, I've flipped that script within my mind about the story, I've changed the root cause of it, and I actually start to feel better about myself. I actually start to feel like maybe I'm worth something more. This negative thought comes back up, but remember, now I feel better within myself. Now I've begun to understand my worth. I flip the thought a lot easier because it's a lot easier for me to think, yes, actually I am good enough for this person when I now have the core belief or the understanding of my worth and value to say that I'm good enough. So all of this core belief stuff, while you don't have to do it, makes all of this stuff a whole lot easier. Because manifestation, the only thing that you could potentially be doing wrong when it comes to manifesting is not residing in dominant thoughts and assumptions of having your desire. This method will help you, and this method would help you. If you do these two things, or if you do just this on its own, or if you do this on its own, we'll probably make this easier without you even really having to do it, so to speak. You will be able to reside in your dominant thoughts and assumptions that benefit you much, much easier, therefore creating. So this and this are the only two things that will stop you from getting your manifestation. Well, this is the only thing that will stop you, but this is the thing that will help you shift this as well. If you do not have your manifestation yet, it is because of this. Try this. If it doesn't work, do this, and this will work. Now, if you do this and this still doesn't work, the only thing that I could actually say to you, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, is you just need to get a better grip of your mind. That is it. Because core beliefs are the only thing that will stop you from being able to run unconsciously or consciously in the beneficial story. So if you do these changes and it still doesn't work, you are just not gripping hold of your mind. And you need to remember that you are in control of your mind, not the other way around. So if you do this and still get to this point and still have no luck, it's not because of anything else. It's not because there's still more to be done. You just need to grab a hold of your mind and actually do the work that needs to be done, or take small breaks from it and come back to it when you're feeling better. Make use of those really good moments when you're feeling particularly pumped. Now, I did obviously have a little arrow going up here. So by revising and shifting core beliefs, the foundations of the negative will lessen, which I've already explained when I said it will make this easier. And then go back to part 1. Now, I was going to make a little joke here saying it wasn't for you, and it's going, I'm kidding, but I'm not going to do that. Well, I suppose I kind of did because I told you, you know what I mean? So I really hope this video has helped. Obviously, it's a very extensive video. It's going to be the last video that you're going to be needing on why you cannot have your manifestation. Actually, I might as well explain this joke thing. I was originally going to say, it's not for you, and then say, but that's not true. But I'm actually going to explain that anything that you desire is for you. If you can think it, you can have it. So I was going to put like, oh, not for you, funny, and then probably have a bunch of people click off and unsubscribe. But there's no point even considering that it's not for you. There's no point even considering the idea of maybe the universe doesn't want it. Because your reality is created by your subconscious mind, which goes off of your dominant thoughts and your assumptions. Your, which means that you are the only thing that can shift it. If you can think it, if you can sit there for 5 minutes and go, I wonder what it would be like, and even just bring the slightest of image to mind about you with your desire, you can have it, because therefore you can make that slightest image a dominant thought, which will in turn become an assumption, which in turn will become a belief, which will be what plays out for you when you aren't thinking about it. I don't affirm for Katie anymore, because it's just a belief that she's mine. It's in line with my self-concept, it's in line with what I assume to be true. Therefore, I don't have to sit here day after day going, Katie and I together, Katie and I together, Katie and I together, because it's a natural belief. But it all started with a thought. So that was meant to be a joke, but it actually turned out to be quite a good reference point. If you desire it, you can have it. If you can think it, that thought can become a dominant thought, which can become an assumption, which can become a natural belief, which will become your unconscious playing out. I really hope this video has helped. If it has, be sure to drop me a like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you like these kind of in-depth videos. If you need any coaching, down below it is linked. If you need the Manifest Your Expat guide, down below that is linked on the membership. Follow my music TikTok, because I do music stuff and I want to grow that TikTok and it's really fun for me. So follow that, and love y'all.